Start whenever.
All right. Big news. Montrezl Harrell signing with the Los Angeles Lakers. He posted on Instagram originally in LAX. Everyone thought he was just going back to the Clippers. Slowly starts coming out. Might go Lakers. I tell you, seems super surprised. Look it up. Sure enough, it's actually a deal now. What do you think?
2 years, 19 million. Player option. Obviously, he'll opt out after one. He's betting on himself. I
Hang on,
think it's
I mean,
great for the Lakers. It's a slap in the face for the Clippers.
oh, 100%. Like I was saying to you, I mean, clearly he must have just not liked the culture there. Not blaming Steve Ballmer. I mean, I think it's pretty consensus that he's actually a very good CEO. Doc obviously left, so bringing in a new coach, whether he was close with him or not. But I mean, I think it's just whatever they had going on there, he just wasn't a fan of, like you said, and it's really a slap in the face to them. He's just literally
One thought.
same stadium and everything.
Hey, it's a different logo on the court.
Yeah.
But he gets to play with LeBron. That's a big thing. You can't forget that. Anthony Davis is great, and him, Anthony Davis, and LeBron are just going to be menacing.
Oh yeah.
But a little side note: Harrell is actually part of Clutch Sports with Rich Paul, the same as LeBron. They've probably known each other for a while. They probably practiced together. It's another example of LeBron getting his guy for no money. I don't really know anything else to say than that. Harrell's gone to a team. He's probably going to win a championship again next year.
Yeah.
The Lakers are solid. They have a way better chance than the Clippers at this point.
No, and when I saw it, I thought it was almost a joke. It's like at this point, it's like you might as well just call the season. If all those guys are healthy, you run that back. And they're not even done filling out their team. There's rumors they're going to get Montrezl. We were talking about it earlier that it's a great option for him to go there if he actually does at minimum. I mean, they get another point guard to replace Rondo. Kuzma hopefully actually develops a bit more after whatever.
Who knows? Maybe Rondo comes back. We don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, Klay Thompson injured, obviously number one, probably was there to be the threat. They're gone already.
First Golden State.
So now it's Denver again, the biggest threat, and who knows how that team will end up looking going into the year. They'll still worry Jokic, obviously, but to round it out, who knows? I mean, I just don't know who competes with them now. Like you said, it's
Houston was proven last year they can't compete with the Lakers already. You add another big guy to that mix. I can't see how Houston competes either.
Houston almost needed Harrell to even compete, and it's clearly not happening.
Yeah, there's Milwaukee's gonna have a good year, but again, it's gonna be hard to control everyone. Who do you put on LeBron whenever you got Harrell and Davis out there? Just being that Harrell's probably gonna come off the bench, to be honest, and he's probably gonna be that super six man that LeBron always has on his great teams. I can still see them picking up a center because Davis doesn't like playing very many minutes at center, but Harrell pretty much get every minute of backup power forward and backup center.
Oh, for sure.
He'll play alongside Davis probably in every closing minute.
Exactly. And I mean, like I said, unless one of them is literally completely just out for the year, I mean, whoever does play them from the Eastern Finals, I don't think it's going to go much better than the Miami series at this point. I just, like you said, completely shocked. I thought it was a joke when I saw it. I didn't think it could. I just didn't understand how it happened. When I honestly, when I saw it, I was like, does this mean AD is moving? And then I saw the deal itself. I was like,
no.
I was like, apparently not, because he signed for absolutely nothing with them.
He signed for $9 million, and that's it.
We were thinking earlier that he'd get overpaid, and he easily could have. He probably could have got $14 million more times 2 or 3. So
I thought he was going to get 20, 25, to be honest.
That's what I mean. He could have got 14 mil more than that times multiple years. So,
but I guess he's betting on himself, though. He's going to look at it again next year and hopefully keep going on the stats he's put up. And if he puts up another year like this year, he's going to prove himself on another quality team, and he'll probably get that big contract. Or Rich Paul is somehow playing the numbers system and knows when to get this guy that max contract that's going to maximize his revenue for his career.
Right. I mean, it's definitely possible. Knows when it's going to happen. That's why the 1 and 1 2. They're waiting to see what happens there. Is it a player option or team option? The 1 and 1
player option.
Player, yeah. So I mean, exactly. It's very much on Rich Paul at that point too, I assume. So
Yeah, it's Harrell's. It might maybe team friendly by the fact that it's a low salary, but it's player friendly with the fact that it's a 1+1.
And I mean, I guess another huge aspect of that too that's almost undervalued is just how tough Arrow is too, how much that takes out of LeBron and AD throughout the whole year, where they have to do that much less bruising and grinding on the inside because they have a guy like that now who's actually not okay. Well, this guy's decent. We brought him on the team. He could hold. This is actually a legitimate player that they got that.
It's not like McGee or even Howard for that matter. The fact that Howard's a little more age at this point. This guy's in his prime. He's 26, 27 years old.
Yeah.
It's a big hit to the Clippers because before George and Kawhi went there, it was because of players like him that brought that culture.
Yep.
And he did cause a bit of drama in the playoffs, yes, but definitely a good pickup.
Absolutely. Could be the pickup of the offseason when it's all said and done. Who knows?
Nope, nobody causes drama on a LeBron team anyways, so I'm really not worried about that.
No, definitely not. And if he does, it will be very short-lived. So, I mean, they'll be fine.
This is not to the extent of signing with the Warriors a couple years ago. He's not to Cousins level, but he's a great player.
Yeah, and that's exactly. He's a great player. Very just shocked that they got him, but we'll see how this turns out. It doesn't seem like it's going to be entertaining in that since two people were already, I guess, not necessarily looking forward to the NBA season as much as they normally would be, and I don't think this signing exactly helps that.
Well, you never know. If you get an injury on LeBron or Anthony Davis, the whole league opens up. That team can't be held up by one of them, and actually needs all their stars to be the top team.
Definitely.
Take out one of those two, and it's a different ball game. You look at Klay Thompson, anything can happen.
Exactly. I mean, they missed the playoffs the year they only had LeBron, so
that's just it. And they're gonna sacrifice depth eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure
these three guys.
I'm sure LeBron and Harrell still make the playoffs at least, but yeah.
Yeah, no, LeBron, they only missed that year because LeBron got hurt.
Yeah.
LeBron still posted up great numbers.
Yeah.
And you had Lonzo Ball. That's a mistake.
Yeah, but all right. So moving on to, I mean, another signing recent was the Mason Plumlee signing, which is it Mason or Miles? Before I even move on from that, it's Mason, correct?
Let me double check it before you.
I feel like it's honestly Miles now that I actually said it.
Oh, now I can't even find it. Oh my goodness. It is. I don't know.
He signed with the Pistons. Type in Plumlee Pistons, and we will know absolutely.
Maybe I shouldn't be the guy here. Maybe. Also, Detroit signed Mason Plumlee and Jahlil Okafor.
Yeah, so that's what I was.
Plumlee actually signed for a decent contract.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. They got Okafor, they just got Dedmon as well, and I believe they also got a fourth big man. And as much as we said earlier, Christian Wood is probably going back there, this almost makes it seem like he's not going back there after all. So, I mean, again, where could Christian Wood maybe go?
Yeah, it's tough, right? This essentially takes him out of the position. Plumlee is more of a center. Wood plays both center and power forward, but he's more of a true center. With the fact that he puts up 9-10 rebounds per game. But Jahlil Okafor also plays center and power forward.
Yeah,
Okafor might not be the top player around, but he still puts up an 8 and 5 per game. So he's a great backup. I definitely don't see
actually
here.
This just announced Christian Wood 33 minutes ago by Waj actually signed a 3-year, $41 million deal with the Houston Rockets.
Wow.
So there we go.
Interesting.
Yeah, it looks like
that's the Rockets staying competitive.
At first, it was 3-year 27, and it ended up going to 3-year 41. So obviously, last minute, his agent was able to get him a bit more money, which is great for him. But yeah, definitely an interesting move. I don't know how Houston pulled that off, whether it's going to be sign and trade or what it would be. I didn't think they had the money, but I mean, does this mean that they're probably absolutely moving on from Westbrook, or do you think this is a way to try to make him stay more so?
I think this is a way to show that they still want to compete.
Yeah.
Like, they gave up a lot for Westbrook, and that team, if you put in a center with Harden and Westbrook, now you're talking about a center who can shoot three.
Yeah.
Wood is that. But if you put in a good center, I know he's not a top player, but the fact that they didn't have anyone before. Capella was great, but the reason they got rid of him, it was they couldn't stretch the floor whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
They put someone in that spot who can still get a few rebounds, play some defense. That was their issue against the Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying this guy's gonna stop Anthony Davis. Obviously not. That's not what he's there for. But I think this is them trying to be like, hey guys, we have a chance to stay competitive here. On the other hand, they could actually flip Harden or Westbrook, and depending on the pieces they come back, they're still a pretty good playoff contender. Still probably a top 4 or 5 seed in the West with just one of the two if they have the right pieces that come back in the right trade.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends what route they go. Like you said, they do have both options. They could either go that route. If I'm them and they are keeping both of them and they are running Christian Wood, I would say you're probably, like you said, going to have to bring in a real center. We did mention a lot of them earlier. Obviously depends on money again. A guy like, if he does, Aaron Baines seems like it'd be fantastic there now almost. Seems like he'd be a great fit for the center, doesn't have to stretch the floor as much. And Christian Wood's obviously going to do a lot of that. So, I mean, I think that would round out the team really good. But overall, I mean, we've even seen teams recently win with Saka, Pachulia at center. So, I mean, as long as they have a guy who, like you said, is a true center and he could actually play consistently, I think then it's them showing they want to contend. And I don't think it's hard for them to get that. They just have to stand up and actually do it. So if I'm them, I think it's a move towards them actually trying to run it back and trying to. But if they're trying to get rid of one of them still, I still think it's probably Westbrook. But again, like you said, they gave up so much for it. I just don't think they want to justify or unjustify that move yet. So I do think at least it's going to be one more year there.
I keep seeing rumors of Westbrook and Harden equally. It seems like they either can't make up their mind or they want to get rid of both. But for Harden, if you trade away an MVP player, no matter what you get back, it's not going to be an MVP quality.
Very unlikely. Yeah.
And if you're trading, no matter how many years it takes and how many picks it is, and if you're trading Westbrook, the fact that you're going to have to take junk and probably give up a pick or two just to offload his contract, and then still not have the players to compete for the next 2 or 3 years, in both senses, they'd be failing.
Yeah, exactly. So it really only seems logical for it to keep it. But I mean, every time we say something seems logical, it just seems to not happen now suddenly. I mean, Gordon Hayward opting out seemed like the most illogical thing. And it's exactly what happened. So next time you know, like you said, Westbrook's going to get piled on for a bunch of scrap to some team who just is going to take them on.
And it seems now, on talking about Hayward, that a lot of these players that were considered top 8 free agents were willing to take very little money.
Yeah.
Christian Wood signed 3 years, $27 million. That's $9 million per year. We know a
Fin-
lot of players that get paid more than that.
They finalized at 341.
341?
That's what Wash had reported. Earlier, that's what I had said. It was first reported 327. It got bumped up to 341 apparently.
Okay, that's a little bit better. That's more in the realm of what I thought he would get paid.
And it still gives them room to again sign an actual true center, whoever it may be. Yeah. But I mean, it could be Cousins, takes less money. If it's like that, that's a very good team.
Well, I think Cousins has to sign for minimum. No one's going to pay him more than minimum.
Exactly.
He hasn't played in almost 2 years. He played for the Warriors in the finals, but he only played a couple games.
Yeah.
So I think there's no way he gets paid more than minimum, considering he wants to play for a contender.
Yeah. So
if you wanted to go play for a bum team, different story.
Yeah, so definitely could fit in there. Definitely could.
Yeah, that would you never know. Houston could still be around, and in all reality, we do need a contender in this league. You can't just hand the title to LeBron every year.
Which is exactly what we're just talking about. I mean, the season basically feels over, even still, knowing that it still feels over. But like you said, at least there's a chance. Yeah, there's an injury. If they do put together 7 great games, I mean, it could still happen. And I mean, as long as you have those pieces, it's the only way to actually even have a chance to make it happen. If they are 4 or 5 deep, I mean, there you go. They do have a chance now.
That's just it. So, well, we'll see how that goes. Hopefully, Houston can actually put something together. Morey's not there anymore. D'Antoni's not there anymore. Small ball, probably relatively over. But if they put someone like Wood at center, that at least give them the opportunity to still play smaller. Of course, they still have PJ Tucker there. Tucker's probably still going to be their starting center if they don't bring anyone else in. But I do think that they should bring in a bigger body just for the matchups against a team like LA, which is who they're going for. Every year, a team builds up to go against a certain team. The Lakers are that team right now.
Exactly. He doesn't need to play every game, but I mean, he played 20 minutes some games. So, I mean, that's definitely what they need.
Marc Gasol?
Yeah. But I still feel like he's most likely to go to the Lakers at this point. It almost,
especially the way it looks.
Yeah. It almost seems to low now.
Well, it's who knows? We don't. I still personally would prefer Marc Gasol coming back to the Raptors, but.
And I mean, I guess the Plumlee signing too does that completely clear the way? I guess for Grant and Millsap both maybe going back to Denver.
Yeah, it definitely opens it up. Plumlee played a little more center than he did. Those guys are a little more power forward, but then they play the backup center or small ball center. But yeah, no, it definitely it opens up the fact that they're willing to bring in those guys because clearly Plumlee didn't fit there. I think that Jokic should be playing 35 minutes a game anyways. He doesn't need another big body behind him. He is the big body. Their backup center should be a little more mobile, shoot a little more threes. I think that's going to fit their system a little bit better.
And how about the Dwight signing to the 76ers while we're on the topic of centers as well?
Love it.
How many minutes do you think he'll play per game? About 20 or?
How many minutes?
Yeah.
It depends if he can coexist with Embiid. So that's an experiment in its own. If he can, I think that's a little bit scary. Just the fact that they would eat up the paint. Dwight is going to be 35 years old next year. He's not as quick as what he used to be, but against most centers, he's still athletic. He can still move around the court. He's still a big body. Embiid is one of the better defensive centers in the league, one of the better centers in the league. So if he can coexist with Embiid, I can see him playing 20 to 24 minutes per game, 20, 22 minutes per game probably. But most likely that they don't really play him together. Most likely they only play him as a strict backup for Embiid and in certain matchups. I think it's more likely that he doesn't play every game and he actually only plays about 15 to 18 whenever he does.
Yeah, I mean, overall, they obviously needed a veteran to come in to try to maybe keep everyone cool down and actually try to get the locker room kind of in check. As much as Jimmy Butler got heat there, he wasn't that bad there. I think he kind of did that for them, and I think they lost that a lot last year too, especially down the stretch. And that team really just seemed debauched by the end. So hopefully, for their own sake, they're bringing guys back together. I mean, the Tobias Harris contract seems to just be hurting them, even though he's a great two-way player. Still,
great player.
Just so much money invested into him. So overall, I still think that alone is probably going to prevent them from going to representing the East in the finals. But I mean, who knows? Ben Simmons can develop to a point where it just makes them the obvious.
And that's what they're expecting, right?
Exactly.
That's what they're expecting Embiid and Simmons to just dominate. Embiid has essentially proven he's one of the top centers, if not the top center of the league. And Simmons, I'm not that high on him, but he is a 6'9" point guard who can run the court and pass essentially as well as anyone in the league.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Simmons overall, he could definitely do things that not every point guard could do. I mean, I remember even in his rookie year seeing him cut the lane. The only guy it reminds me of is the way LeBron cuts the lane. How guys just always want to move out of the way once he starts going. But I mean, he still
He
has
needs to put on a bit of weight.
that, and he just needs to round out his game too. I mean, everyone obviously knocks on his shooting, but I mean, when you play from beyond the arc, you at some point need to develop some ability, not just that, but also to consistently shoot from the free throw line. Because I mean, you know that you need to get there probably somewhere between 6 to 10 times a game minimum if you're him, and you really need to start hitting those in the 70, 80, and high 80 probably velocity.
Yeah, I was gonna say at least mid 80. Even LeBron usually hits him in the 80s.
Exactly.
People harp on his shooting, but yeah, guy can't. Simmons won't shoot a 3-pointer. We don't know if he can or not because he just won't do it. That just takes away the fact that you don't have to guard him close. You're now backing up on him. You're retreating on him. You're double team on him. It's if he added that shooting, we say the same thing about Giannis to a lesser extent. But if you added that shooting, damn, yeah, it'd be solid.
And I mean, it's not like you can't win with him without him fully developing that. I mean, Rajon Rondo won the championship in Boston, and that was his primary thing was cutting lane, dishing it out, being super good on the defensive end.
It's a different era now, though.
It is. It is.
Everyone needs to shoot a 3 nowadays.
For the most part, I mean, obviously they need to develop around it, but I mean, like you said, like Tobias Harris isn't a lights out 3 shooter. They don't.
Embiid is slightly above average for his position, but maybe average at best overall.
They lost JJ Redick, who again is super great.
He was great for that team.
Exactly. So that's one that always hurts them. So down the stretch, I mean, we'll see. But overall, Dwight Howard, yeah, definitely good signing for them too.
Going back to Dwight as well, I was just looking up his minutes per game. He actually he played in 69 games last year. So not too bad considering. That's probably pretty much every game because of the bubble. But he averaged 18.9 minutes.
Yeah. So
that's every year before that he averaged 25 plus. But that's probably more what we're looking at.
Yeah, so around that 20 mark definitely seems reasonable. Somewhere kind of between that like 16 to 18 mark, definitely.
And I think he'll put up numbers. He'll get his probably 9 points and 7 rebounds a game. His per 36 number is going to be outstanding. Great player.
Yeah, I mean, he is always working on little things too, like his shooting, like we're talking about. Not saying he's a great 3-point shooter, but at least he works on it. So down the stretch, overall, I mean, they lost Horford too. They basically got to bring in a player who replaces him in a lot of senses on a much, much better deal as well. So,
well, I don't know if he replaces him, but Horford's a great player. Horford somehow didn't fit that team. He just didn't fit the money.
Yeah.
Put into that position.
Yeah, exactly. The position was replaced, not necessarily the same player, but like you said, he just didn't fit in the system. So why bring in a guy the exact same? I mean,
they went bigger than Embiid. You think Horford is too small for him, you know?
But it's the same thing as like I was saying with Harrell in Los Angeles. I mean, it takes out just that much of the brute and the physicality that Embiid's gonna have to go through year to year when you actually get to put a bit of flat load on Howard. When he gets to go in there, gets just knock guys around, makes them not want to play in the post and play as Howard. And you get Embiid, you get to soften him up and play that mid-range game. So overall, I think it's gonna go good for them.
Yeah, I think it's going to go fantastic overall as well. One thing we're often forgetting about as well, just like you're just saying, he's an older player, he's experienced. Embiid is going through a stretch in his life where he could be the best center in the league. And at any given moment, if he stays healthy for a full year, puts up the right numbers that we know he can do, he probably would be the best center overall in the league. Dwight was the best center for how many years? 6, 7, 8 years. He was the best center. Like he knows how to handle that limelight of being that star player. I think it's a great person to take under his wing. Horford was an all-star for a couple of years. Dwight's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I mean, especially after winning the title, he already has Defense Player of the Year. You don't need an MVP if you're him, like to ever be there. He was definitely top 5 MVP voting at some point
For
to justify
it. Definitely at one point, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, Dwight Howard will definitely for sure go to the Hall of Fame. I mean, even just quickly, just going back to the Pistons too, do you think anything
Yeah.
of the Josh Jackson signing, the former number 4 overall pick from the Suns, just from 2017? I mean, his rookie contract just ended, went through those 3 years, already not re-signed, number 4 overall pick. He just never really fit with the Suns. I believe he played in Memphis last year. He split time between the G League and the NBA. Yeah, I mean, obviously that sucks whenever you pick 4 overall. And basically, by the second year, you're almost not in the NBA.
You're pretty much giving up on at this point.
So Pistons
That's
obviously giving him a chance. We talked a lot about they have a lot of openings. Overall, I mean, good signing in the sense they take a chance on someone wants to go there. Any chance you think it's anything, or it's probably just a dud?
like it's we'll probably get 10 points per game. I'd love someone to take to. Everyone needs to get a chance on him. He's still only 22 years old. He'll be 23 next year. He's not a horrible player. He was obviously overhyped. He probably shouldn't have gone number 4. Probably should have went a little bit later. But if he hones in on shooting, he could actually be a decent player. The guy can't shoot a 3-pointer, and he plays small forward shooting guard. Like he plays that wing role, but he can't shoot a 3. But we've seen in this league, whenever you're not consistent on that 3-pointer, whenever you're on the wing, it's everyone looking for 3 and D. Lee Johnson couldn't cut it in Toronto. Guy can't shoot a 3. It's just common knowledge right now that he needs to step that up. This guy's not even 300% for his career. He hoists them up, but he can't get them in. So he does get 10 points per game. Can be a great player driving, but unless you're someone like Ben Simmons, where you have all these other attributes, you can't just rely on driving.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a key aspect of that is, like you said, like even let's say his defensive abilities are there and his athleticism.
Great. Yeah.
If you're going to be that defensive guy or that standout, you need to be that 3D guy in the NBA. You can't just be one. You definitely have to have something else in your skill set with guys like, even if you're going to fill that role player route like a Thabo, like a Kent Bazemore, again, at least they were able to stretch the floor consistently. Lance Stevenson, same thing. At least he had the ability to hit the 3. So that's definitely something that, like you said, he's going to have to work on if he wants to be a steady, like a staple in Detroit. But yeah, I do think he's obviously going to get the chance to play. He'll definitely get some minutes for his sake. He said hopefully at least puts out double digits role and he can carve out a role player route kind of going forward for his career, and he can at least revitalize him.
He was doing pretty good in Memphis, though. I know that he kind of split the lead last year, but he was doing pretty good there when he did play. So, but no, I totally agree with you, and it's hopefully that this is his better chance now, and hopefully it's something a little more stable, and he's able to go there from the start of the year. And it kind of looks more like he played his way back into the lineup in Memphis, but he kind of figured out his game a little bit more. And looking at his stats a little bit right now, and his effective field goal percentage went way up last year because he stopped taking 3-pointers, or not as many 3-pointers, and it seems like he's been actually hitting 2-pointers. If he hit 2-pointers 540, which is pretty solid considering he never hit more than 450 before that. So that's a big step up. That's kind of him figuring it out, but again, he still needs to hit that 3 like we're talking about, like you just mentioned. Even like you said, I think he's a perfect comparison to someone like Lance Stevenson. Gets 10 points per game, drives, but Lance can hit that 3.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's almost ironic too that both Josh Jackson and Ben McLemore almost had that tendency where they can't hit the 3. They both got drafted super high. People thought they could somehow score even though they couldn't hit the 3. And they both went to Kansas. And it's almost like just because the university itself is so good that obviously these guys are hyped there, but it's obviously a lot easier, we know, in college, not only to hit the 3 because you do have that different range, but also to obviously drive the hoop and to be consistent in those situations. I mean, so overall, I mean,
you harp on Kansas all the time.
Not that, but it's just he might not develop into necessarily anything based on
anything better.
We didn't see Ben McLemore develop either, and they could be the exact same type of player.
Yeah, and if you go back to both those players' rookie years, In the rookie year, he thought they were going to be good because they can shoot, they can score, but they weren't efficient. They weren't doing anything else. They were playing a bit of defense, and hopefully he has a little bit better career than Macklemore or Stevenson had, for that matter. Considering Stevenson's pretty much out of the league at this point. This guy's still only 22, 23. Hopefully he does develop a little bit better. But if not, he's looking more and more to go that Macklemore route. I know Stanley Johnson never put up the scoring numbers, but he's a better defensive player than Josh Jackson is. But that's kind of what might happen to him, is fizzle out of the lineups and not be playing anymore, not be playing minutes. Next, playing in Europe by 26, 27. We don't know.
Yeah, but hopefully for sake, like
hopefully not.
Puts up those double-digit points, at least carves out something for himself. Gallinari too. I think I was pretty high on him going to the Knicks. I don't know if either of us said the Hawks. Maybe it was briefly mentioned, but he goes to the Hawks, I believe, for about $20 million a year on a 3-year deal. Obviously, pretty easy fit for him there. He's a good kind of almost like a Mike Muscala, Kyle Korver combination almost. So it's a pretty good fit for them. I mean,
I think it's great, and that right around the money I thought he'd get. That's what I thought he would be worth on the open market. A lot of people thought he'd sign for less to go to a contender, but within a year, this could be a contender.
That's what I mean.
Still young.
Makes them a playoff team.
I think it does.
At least in the East, for sure. Considering Orlando got that 8 seed, and you look at the Atlanta Hawks roster, I like Atlanta's roster more than I like Orlando's roster, for sure.
I do see holes on defense, considering Trae Young and Gallinari. Gallinari's smart defensively, IQ-wise, but he's not exactly a top defensive player for the position, especially when it comes down to the post.
Yeah.
It's hopefully Capella can kind of carry those holes, whatever he is on. But I still think it's a great pickup. Like, the guy put up almost 20 points per game last year. I think he'll put up more in Atlanta maybe. Trae Young is a half decent passer. I know he shoots the ball like he's a young Steph Curry that can't hit shots, but he still gets 25 points per game last year. I think it's going to be a good team. I think Atlanta is they signed one of the top guys in this free agency, probably the top scoring guy, to be honest. And I think he'll do good.
Yeah, and I mean, good for them too, to almost going back to falling down to the bottom and actually being one of the teams who seemed like they could actually make their way back up to where they were before, because they did have a very good team before with that Joe Johnson, the Kyle Korver, and all of that core. And then they've only really went to the bottom for 2, maybe 3 years maximum. They're obviously, like we both agreed, it seem like they're on the rise, opposed to so many of these teams where they are in the bottom, they're stuck, whether it's been the Charlotte, and maybe they've had a random 8-7, the Charlotte, the Orlandos, the Detroits, the Washingtons, who seem like they're going to get stuck down there now. It does seem very hard for these teams to get out at the bottom in the NBA nowadays, and it seems like the Atlanta Hawks didn't get stuck in that, so good for them.
Yeah, they were only down there for a couple of years, right? And maybe it's 3 or 4. I think Horford left in about 2017, 2018. So it's definitely they've shown that you don't need to be a long-term bottom feeder. You just need to rebuild, hit the ground running, trade away those top players whenever you know that they're on the decline. Let's be honest, Jeff Teague, by the end of it, Horford by the end of it, he's good. Is he an all-star anymore? No. Millsap, okay, starter maybe, but they got rid of these players at the right time.
Even they got every bit of best basketball they could have gotten out of Kyle Korver, and then got rid of him.
I think like 35 years old when he left.
Yeah.
So I think that they kind of showed, as much as they're not a team like the Spurs, which stays competitively year after year, and let's be honest, they haven't won in our era at least. So until they actually win a championship, we can't say they're the top organization, but they did show that they're at least going to compete every year.
Yeah, they're probably one of the better basketball cities overall, just based on, again, how they could actually seem to rebound. Their fan base typically seems to support them. Management
either way
typically doesn't seem to make bad decisions. So, I mean, the Atlanta Hawks, again, just seemed like a good organization, not only for this year with Gallinari going there, but maybe even for future years with other guys going there too.
They don't seem to make bad decisions, eh? Remember whenever they picked Trae Young over Doncic? They traded up for him. They traded up for him.
Yeah, but it's not the worst deal ever. I mean, both of them at the end of the day are going to be our top guards in the year already. And I think it's opposite, actually. The Mavs traded up for Doncic. Young went 5 overall, I believe.
Oh, who am I thinking of? No, I seem like an idiot.
Doncic, yeah, they traded up to get him, but someone had the opportunity to trade up to get him and didn't. I think that's what it was. But yeah, Trae Young went 5th overall, I believe. He did fall a bit because the knack was that he was just a scorer, obviously. His passing kind of developed itself, but there was someone else who made the decision.
Yeah. It was what's his name there? It was Ayton, I'm pretty sure.
It was Ayton?
I think. Let me double check it here. That was just too funny. No, it was Trae Young. Yeah.
Trae Young went 2nd?
Trae Young went 1st.
Did he? Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's Doncic. That's what I was right. Yeah, I was right. Doncic was selected 3rd overall by Atlanta Hawks 2018 draft. He was then traded to the Dallas Mavericks in exchange for Trae Young.
Interesting. I don't know why I thought he went 5th then.
What a crazy world, eh? Not gonna lie, the guy who put up stat numbers last year of 29, 9.5, and 9. I'll take him over Trae Young any day.
Most people probably would, but again, I think it's not like there's not a chance that Trae Young can't win an MVP. So it's not.
He'll be an all-star. He'll be a consistent all-star. He'll be a top guard for the rest of his career.
Yeah, they didn't.
Atlanta's building around somebody.
Now, if they got Adam Morrison or someone along those lines, it would be something else.
Like Bennett. Yeah.
Yeah, we can't knock on him too hard though. It's the Toronto.
Oh, I completely agree. I actually love Anthony Bennett. I think he has a chance at the NBA again this year. I think he actually, to be honest, Bennett destroys the G League. Like, he does not belong in the G League. Somehow has not cracked it on the next level. But
and just quickly, just a couple to run through. Hood resigns with the Blazers. Again, Trey Burke goes to the Mavericks, replace Seth Curry. Obviously, there I'm a pretty big Trey Burke fan just because of Michigan days. But again, obviously, he just replaces Curry pretty easily. Who else do we have here? We have Bertans, who we both said probably returns to Washington. He returned to Washington. It was 5-year. It looks like, I think 5-year 80. So
ridiculous, man.
There's actually Alec Burks goes to the Knicks. He goes for $6 million a year, 1 year, which is actually pretty solid. Burks had a pretty good year to end it. So
good job.
Yeah.
Good job. Yeah, good for him.
Joe Harris actually got a huge payday. He almost got $20 million a year from the Nets, $475. We did say Joe Harris, very, very valuable player. We hoped he retained him. He got a bit more than we both said. I think we both said he get about 15. He got a bit more, but good for Joe Harris. Good for the Nets.
Thank God. Wow, I didn't know that. You're blowing my mind over here. Year 75. Good on him. He got about 18, 19 million per year. Starting off with about 15, 16, right around where we said. I don't know.
Yeah, and we did say Marcus Morris likely also returns to Clippers. That also just happened. Clippers.
Well, that of course is going to happen with Harrell.
Year 64. So again, he gets
year 64. Yep.
Just under 20. So I guess instead of that short term, like we said, he actually gets that long term deal. So it's good overall for him. And at this point, I think that seems like pretty much all the big signings that are at least set in stone. So yeah, and also the Christian Wood deal for Houston. It does seem like it's going to be a sign and trade. Don't know who for yet, but obviously
that makes sense.
It is going to be a sign and trade.
That makes sense for sure, actually. By the way, going back to I was wrong with Trae Young. He was drafted 5th overall.
So I was right,
but they still traded.
See,
so, like that.
I don't know. I knew I wasn't crazy for thinking 5th. I was like, I knew this.
Yeah,
it was weird, right? Because technically,
Atlanta had the 3rd pick, and then they traded down.
Yeah,
they traded down because they thought their guy was at number 5.
Yeah, exactly. because the Mavs.
But
But there was someone else
yes,
who could have taken Doncic, and they didn't. They picked whoever they may have.
it's
Yeah.
probably not the right player. All I know. Doncic's probably him and John the top players for the next 10 years.
Because who went
But
1 and 2 that drafted? Was it the
Ayton.
Batley draft or Ayton?
Ayton.
And who went first that draft?
I think Ayton went first, and
And then Batley second, and then Doncic third.
Doncic was third. Crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Jaren Jackson went fourth, and he's stepped it up last year quite hard. And Marvin Bagley went second.
Yeah.
What a horrible pick by Sacramento. He's still a great player.
Yeah, not necessarily horrible, but based on, again, the fact that you could have had Luka Doncic. Exactly. And that's exactly what it was. I mean, I could talk about Sacramento as an organization, again, talking about how good Atlanta is as an organization. Sacramento is just on the whole other level. I mean, I guess quickly, too, because I was talking about it earlier, with the Phoenix Suns deal with Chris Paul, 2 questions from it already been discussed a lot by people. A, did Phoenix overpay for Chris Paul? B, does this give Phoenix 3 All-Stars almost guaranteed this year? Or do you think Devin Booker is the only All-Star from that team likely?
Yeah, it's a good question. So they're going to be a better team, Chris Paul. Did they overpay? Oubre's solid. I think they showed in the bubble last year when he got hurt that he's not critical to this team. He's fairly expendable. I know he's going to Golden State now, but he's going there to fill a hole because there's an injury. He hasn't shown that he's consistently going to put up 15 points per game for the rest of his career. Meanwhile, Chris Paul, he might be 35 years old, 34, 35 years old. He's probably the smartest mind in the NBA outside of LeBron James. Maybe Rondo's real close, but Paul has been consistently top point guard, if not top 3 to top 5 point guard since he got in the league. And having Paul there definitely adds a lot of legitimacy. Do I believe that he's going to be an all-star this year? I think if they're a winning team, then yes. Then I think that they're going to at least have 2 all-stars there. I think if they go into the all-star break, say 5 to 7 games above 500, that'll be fantastic. And I think that's actually a possibility. Do I think a third all-star is going to be on that team? I'd take a big trade. That would probably take them trading away Ayton. Which we all know they're pretty high on.
But that would be the third All-Star, presumably, would be DeAndre Ayton.
I don't think he's there. I just don't think he's there. I think if they have a third All-Star, I think it's because they traded away Ayton and they brought in a better player. Or they brought in a proven player. I don't know who else if they can sign. I'd love Hayward to be there. I think he would add another wrinkle to that team. But I think if they do get a third All-Star, it's because they traded for someone. I think that would be a mistake. I do think that Ayton will be an All-Star in this league. I don't think he's there yet. I don't think he's on the same caliber as players like Jokic and Embiid, Davis. I don't think it's even close for that matter. And he will get there eventually, but he's just not there yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to, to answer the first part of my own question, did they overpay? I think you make a good point of, not only did, yes, they got one of the smartest minds in the league, and what they got rid of necessarily, Oubre is a good player, but was that his kind of plateau? Very likely. Did he even maybe overexcel last year? Maybe, because he did. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of everything that was happening was based off how they played in the bubble. But with that too, I think management obviously said, okay, we're obviously on the rise, even with the picks for trading. For them to be worth anything, they need to be a steal of a pick, because it's likely going to be somewhere between 14 to 20 for the next 2 to 3 years if we keep this team. So they need to draft very, very well for that pick to even have value. So I think for them flipping it, they don't necessarily have a lot of value in that pick. Internally, they don't feel like they do. So I don't think it's a huge burden on them. So I don't think they really necessarily, again, were worried about that. They obviously get Chris Paul. I think likely, like you said, if they're winning, I think Chris Paul is barely likely an all-star, mainly on the fact that the fans voted, and Chris Paul is so liked, or not only by fans but by players around the NBA too.
By coaches, he's
Exactly.
respected.
So I think it's Chris Paul. I think honestly, as long as he plays pretty much every game, and the Suns are at least 500, he's probably an all-star. DeAndre Ayton, I think, has a very good chance as well, to be honest. I mean, last year he was 18 and 11. And like we were talking about out there too.
Fairly impressive.
Yeah, I mean, center isn't that deep at the same time, though. I mean, Rudy Gobert is one of the best centers, especially if we're just looking at centers in the West. And I mean, statistically, DeAndre Ayton is technically more appealing to him. And when it's a fan vote, that does stand out a lot. And if we have a team like the Suns who are so exciting and so many bandwagoners are going to jump on because they only watch the bubble. Not only that, but just because they only watch the bubble. And that's there. But every year, you know, there is a group of fans that comes in around playoff. And that's all they did see. So now they're Suns fans kind of thing. So when you have DeAndre Ayton maybe putting up 20 and 12, 20 and 14 even maybe, and he's not, he might not stretch the floor. He might not do little things that matter game to game, but he's putting up the numbers that might alone make him an all-star, especially again because center's not so deep.
Well, that's depends, right? We do have some centers that put up empty stats, though.
Yeah.
So we look at someone like Whiteside, Drummond, they average that 18 and 12, 18 and 13, 15 and 14. They're not all-stars most years. Sometimes they are. Drummond have been. Whiteside, I believe, have once. But you're right. For the fact that Ayton scored, you're right, 18, 11 and a half. If he can get that point per game to up to 20 or over and still have 11, 12, 13 rebounds per game, then he has a good chance at it. I think the one way that would really help him is that Chris Paul trade, though. Chris Paul will be able to man the point. Rubio's a great point guard. Actually, we both talked about him on the side that Rubio is one of the best passing point guards in the league, most underrated point guards in the league. But Chris Paul has a certain level of IQ to him. He'll be able to get Ayton some shots that he just never had before. But with that being said, I think the big benefit from Chris Paul is him going in there and being able to play defense and show these guys how to play. He might not be the fastest anymore. He probably can't stand in front of Westbrook. But he knows how to position himself, and he takes a high level from everyone that plays on this team. If you're going to be out there, you're going to work your fucking ass off. And I think that's one thing that he showed in OKC is that no matter who's on the court with them, they're going to be playing defense. They're going to be playing hard every minute. Gallinari had the best year of his career last year with Paul. I think that's something that if Ayton can step up that defensive IQ and still get the points per game up to at least 20, then yeah, he does have a good chance. I think there's so much more to him as a player, though.
Yeah, there definitely will be. But like just looking at it too, I mean, every year it seems like Devin Booker is improving little by little, and it seems like you said very unlikely that he's not going to develop more under Chris Paul. And same goes for Ayton.
It's crazy.
Years, but he has developed over from year to year, and I mean with Paul, it'd be very unlikely for him to regress, I would think. So I'm still going to lean towards, honestly, if they are around 500 or over, I think it's honestly very likely they have 3 All-Stars this year. I think a lot of people like that team, and people are going to bandwagon them pretty hard.
I hope so. They're an exciting team. Devin Booker deserves it. The guy got 78 points a couple of years ago, and he's still not even considered a top 3 player to the position. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, it could be because he does split time between point guard and shooting guard too. But yeah, I mean, look at what James Harden was before Houston, right? Devin Booker is definitely better than what James Harden was in OKC.
100%.
So, I mean, who knows what Devin Booker's ceiling is?
He's still young. No, that Phoenix team definitely has a lot ahead of them right now. And as much as we say, like some people could say it was an overpay to get Chris Paul, the real overpay to get Chris Paul was Houston physically overpaying Chris Paul. That was the big issue. Overall, Chris Paul's a great player. He's still one of the best point guards in the league. If you have a chance to get one of the best point guards in the league for someone like Kelly Oubre, who is maybe top 15, top 20 of at his position at most, you do it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think like I had said to you too, they got Oubre for Ariza. So I mean, technically they flicked Trevor Ariza for Chris Paul. And I mean, if you get that offer, you take that deal 100% of the time.
Do they each play their separate role? Yes, but Chris Paul plays the star role.
There's other Trevor Arizas in the league. There's not other Chris Pauls, to be honest.
Exactly. That's what it comes down to. And Chris Paul is one of the most respected players. He's actually the president of the Players Union.
Yep.
So he's got a great mind out there, and he's definitely going to whip that team into shape. And that's what they've been missing the most. Had been someone to go there and just lay down the rules, and you play this way. That's one of the reasons why Toronto's so good. That's the culture they have there with Lowry. So that's kind of mentality I think Paul's going to bring there. Same thing he brought to OKC last year.
And I guess last point here, who do you think after day one of free agency is the most improved aside from the Los Angeles Lakers? Because, I mean, A, the team couldn't get better, but yes, they somehow got better.
It's tough. Lakers got better. But let me just. So everyone that got signed today, right?
They also did sign Wesley Matthews too with the Lakers,
which is a great signing, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, any guys like who are actually productive and you can bring in it for a very limited contract, good on them.
Yeah, I know. When Wesley Matthews, if he's not hurt, he's one of the better 3-and-D players in the league. He's a little bit old, getting a little bit older now, but he's still only about 30. So
you remember when he got a huge contract in Dallas?
Oh yes. Well, he left Portland to go to Dallas, right?
Yeah, because he got a huge contract. Just like
yeah.
Left Houston to go to Dallas for a huge contract.
Dallas did anything to get anyone beside Dirk. Yeah.
Well, like I said, Hayward might go there, and at this point, I'm sorry to jinx you, Gordon Hayward, but if you go there, you might have another injury. So maybe don't listen to me and don't go to Dallas.
We think you'll do great there. Don't get hurt.
If I will play as you guys in 2K, but let's not bank on it.
Yeah, but going back to the best player. Jeremy Grant's over in Detroit now.
Oh, just signed?
3-year, $60 million.
There's no way now Christian Wood goes back. I mean, I guess.
Well, he's re-signed now.
Wow, right? That is the whole point out now. But yeah, no. I mean, good for them for making up for it. But yeah, I don't understand necessarily why they brought in guys who can't stretch the floor when Blake, as much as he wants to, he can't. Like, he's tried to develop a shooting forever, and he's just not a good shooter.
Well, Grant's a hard-nosed player. That's a big pay for someone that I don't really see him as a star. I see him as a fantastic role player, great role player, but I don't really see him as the star. He's now getting paid to be a number 2, number 3 option. I just don't see him as that right now. Maybe he blossoms into that. Fantastic. Is that beside Blake? I don't know. It's a ballsy pickup. That's them signaling that we're not tanking. And or maybe they get rid of everyone else. They just have Grant, and they pay one player $20 million for the next couple of years.
Because I mean, realistically, none of these moves push.
They don't contend them.
It doesn't make them a needle mover. It doesn't make them hardly even makes them playoff team. I still like the Hawks more than the Pistons, even with all these additions.
Yeah, to be honest, going back to what we were just talking about, what's the best move of the day, what team did the best outside of let's say the Lakers, I think it probably was the Hawks. With Gallinari with a great pickup. Yeah, it was a reasonable contract. He matched, as much as he's a bit older than the core, he's much older than anyone else in that team that looks outside of maybe Bazemore. But they don't need him to be young. If they want to win the next 2 or 3 years, this pushed them to winning. This put them in the playoff contention at this point. The East might be a little more open.
Mm-hmm.
Giannis, we'll see what happens in the playoffs. It can happen on that team. We don't really know. Outside of them, there's not really that huge contender in the East. If anything, Philly is not as stacked as they were. Boston's not as stacked as they were. Gordon with Hayward just leaving. I think that Atlanta just showed up and they're like, "Hey guys, we're going to be probably in the playoffs next year. We're going to contention mode now. They're probably going to pick up one or two more vets at this point. And between Trae Young, Gallinari, the rest of that team that they already had in place, I think my only issue is their defense. I'll probably keep harping on that until I physically see it. But offensively, that team's gonna be lights out. They'll be able to keep up with anyone probably.
Yeah, and I mean, not only that too, if for whatever reason they're not a contender or a playoff team, whatever their deal is, that's a very tradable contract.
Yep.
So there's very little downside.
Downside.
Yeah, it's almost like maybe they made a run at Gordon Hayward. Maybe Gordon Hayward does want another big contract. They're like, hey, it's not worth it to us. Let's just bring in Gallinari. It's almost like the B option to him fits in, like I said, pretty easy in that system. So, I mean, yeah, I that's definitely a good argument. Thinking off the top of my head, I mean, it's probably honestly just between the Lakers, the Hawks, and probably the Rockets, just because we talked about how much they needed a big guy, and they probably got the most talented big guy that was available. So I think on them, that's very good. This could turn around and maybe change very quickly depending on how they handle the roster, whether it's mainly talking Westbrook and Harden. But if they go into the season with this and they add that other center, like I said, I think today was actually a very good day for the Houston Rockets as well.
Yeah, and I can definitely see that. We were talking about that with Wood really high on both of us. He put up great numbers last year. If anything, he probably would have got paid even more if he had put up those numbers throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
But he only really put those up after they got rid of Drummond because that hole opened up for him. But with that being said, he played himself into a contract that was still affordable by a contending team like Houston. If he was to get paid any more money, he would not have been affordable by them. But he would have got overpaid on a bad team. I think that.
Oh no, keep going on that point because my point will be different.
Okay, I was just gonna say that I do think that Wood is a great pickup. I think that if he would have went to a different team, he wouldn't be as highly regarded right now. I think he does fit the Houston team very well. I think he's going to fit their timeline very well. I still think that Gallinari, if you put Wood on that team, I don't see Atlanta as a playoff team. You put Gallinari on that team, I see Atlanta as a playoff team. But in that sense, I think that Gallinari would have cost Houston too much money. Mm-hmm. So I think that with the amount of money that Houston had, they picked up the best player that they could.
Yeah.
Not counting Harrell, because that's kind of cheating.
Yeah, and I mean, on the Harrell note too, is it fair to say that Clippers probably had the worst day of anyone in the first day of free agency? I mean, all they got to do was bring back Patrick Peterson, have an angry face from Patrick Beverley, and then sign Marcus Morris again. So.
Oh yeah, that's a rough one. Patterson, by the way, not Peterson.
Yeah, sorry.
But not gonna lie, I had to Google it, even though I used to play in the Raptors. He has not been outstanding. Morris is good. He didn't play that good there. I think he'll actually play much better now that Harrell's not there. I think that as much as Harrell's a big player, Morris is an amazing player, there just wasn't enough shots to go around between Morris, Harrell, Lou Williams, Paul George, and Kawhi. There is other players in that team. They can't throw every single shot. So it's impossible for everyone to get 20 points per game. It was kind of expected for Morris not to get his 19.6 he got in New York. But I think now that Harrell's not in the picture, he opens himself up to playing that 30, 35 minutes per game and actually getting himself to 18, 20 points per game again.
It's just the fact that, again, he went to the literally
the other team across the hall.
I think it makes it just so easy to say they have the worst day. I mean,
I completely agree with you. Like I say, I think Morris is going to play better now that Harrell's not there. But Harrell's a better player than Morris right now in their respective careers. Harrell had more upside to it, and he came for cheaper, and he left them for a big fuck you.
Yeah. Even I guess an underrated bad day too, the Pelicans. I saw that because they lost favors unless they sign someone, this will be the 10th year in a row they're going into the start of the season without a starting center. So I mean, for whatever reason, they just can't fill that void ever since Tyson Chandler left them. Even after they signed Jahlil Okafor, or I mean, drafted Jahlil Okafor.
Hey, they had Cousins for that 3 months.
Yeah, exactly.
That's still one of the only playoff games that didn't occur that Rebecca had seen. One of the first playoff games she'd seen from start to finish was the game Cousins got hurt because they were actually playing the Raptors that day.
Oh, nice.
And I literally seen him fall, and I'm like, he's done. He's out. No way. They were gonna be sick. I was like, he's hurt. And she's like, what's going on? I'm like, he's hurt. But she was like, I don't know why you're so like amped up. Like, he's a good player. Like the Brown, he's not gonna win this year.
There's probably so many similar stories to like Gordon Hayward and like guys times like that. I don't know if you remember
the day of.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember the Kevin Ware injury from Louisville.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So many people will probably say it was like their first date. They're watching it at a bar or something, and they're like freaking out. And, oh man, yeah,
it's rough, eh?
It definitely is.
But yeah, going back to it, I do think New Orleans didn't have a great day. I think there's still centers out there for them. I think if they can get, there's quite a few, if they can get just someone who can fill the minutes, I think someone like Tristan Thompson would be good there.
Yeah, I think you said Baines earlier.
Baines, yeah. Baines, I think would be a great fit there because he can actually shoot the three-pointer. I think that's still someone like Hayward would be a great fit there. So if there's money to be spent and they have some money for someone like Hayward to bring them in, and then they have to go after a veteran minimum at center, I think they do it. There's a lot of centers on the free agent market. If you're willing to downgrade yourself, you just want someone like, say, Robin Lopez. I'm not going to say Tyson Chandler, but that type of player. There's a lot of them out there that'll sign for probably minimum. So if they want to reallocate their money to, if someone like Hayward actually is available, then no matter who they're going to plug into that hole, considering that Zion's going to end the game at small ball center anyways, then there's a lot of people out there.
Yeah, I mean, a guy like Robin Lopez, like you said, super easy fit there. Just anyone, like you said, just to fill the minutes and actually be somewhat reliable is all they really need. But they obviously need to bring someone in now.
Someone has to come in. You can't just go into the year. Zion's not ready to play a full year, let alone play a full year at center. I think Zion's career in the NBA is going to be playing center, but I think that's going to be in about 5 years.
You think he's just going to keep growing then?
That guy already looks like Superman, you know. Guy looks somehow bigger than LeBron at this point, and he's like 21 years old, 20 years old. But he's a large guy, and naturally, I think he fits better at center. I don't know if he's defensively there yet to play center all the minutes. I put him right there with Anthony Davis. He can play it, but he probably doesn't want to.
Definitely. It's pretty much all the NBA news, it seems like. Maybe take a last-minute look, make sure there was no other signings, but I think that's pretty much all for day one. Seems like all the general managers are old men, and they might go to bed at decent times, so probably no more moves nowadays.
Oh, Robin Lopez signed with Washington Wizards.
Oh, there we go.
So he's off the list. Yeah, so there's definitely a lot of people signed, but nothing too outlandish. A couple big moves. The Wood move, Gallinari's move.
I feel like
Montrezl Harrell.
Yeah, I thought what we thought would happen did, where we thought a lot of guys would get overpaid. No one really got overpaid, honestly.
Harris got a good contract. He got a little more than I thought he would get.
Joe Harris, yeah.
Joe Harris, yeah. I thought he got a little more than I thought he'd get.
475, yeah, definitely.
But other than that, no one really, looking at the list right now, nothing really stands out. Morris got pretty much exactly what we thought he'd get. Mason Plumlee, it's just $9 million a year contract, nothing major anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And Christian Wood, yeah, that's right around where we
I said
12, 14, didn't you?
I thought he'd get much more. You thought he'd get less. I said he would get like 20,
Oh yeah.
22.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So
I thought he got probably about 15 max. He got 41, which is just under that, about 14. But yeah, nothing too outlandish. But the big news of the day is that Harrell trade or that Harrell free agency. Big slap in the face. I feel bad for the Clippers right now. They have to do something.
yep.
Clearly, something wasn't working, and their squabbles in the locker room just spilled out, and they just lost one of their best players for nothing.
Which again, team like Milwaukee better watch out too, because I mean, if they're not getting that trade through and just more drama after more drama, easily could be them next.
That's just it. They got to hold it together because Giannis is not there yet. It's not staying yet, and the more and more of the shit show that they put on, more and more he's going to be like, wow, I want to go to a stable locker room, a stable team. Hell, that's where someone like Miami, the Raptors, that's where they come into play.
Yep, exactly.
It's true.